So you can just pause for a while and then let's do it. Ready?
Okay. Yep.
Awesome. Enjoy.
Welcome back to the Opportunity Zone. I'm Nate Armstrong. I'm joined by co-host
Chris Lavin. How y'all doing?
So Chris and I got a lot to cover today. Number one, Chris, I know you saw this. 10-year high on delinquencies on a specific type of multifamily loan right now. CMBS loans right now, 10-year high. We're going to cover what's going on and how you as an investor can take advantage of that. Another big one, Chris, little downgrade action on the U.S. credit score.
Yeah, we had a little slip there.
Little slip. We're going to talk about how that might affect you as an investor as well. We're also going to talk about some new rent control. That's one of those government mechanisms where they cap the amount of rent a landlord can charge. There's another state that just signed sweeping new legislation that we're going to go through today too. And then we'll also talk about where the actual opportunity is happening right now. So all this and more on the Opportunity Zone today. So I'm going to dive in and we're going to hit the news in just a second. I first want to cover a quick little Bible verse. So those of you that have ever read the book of Samuel, if you haven't read it, pay attention to this story. So King Saul, he was anointed to be king. He made a mistake and he lost his blessing. And so then another young man named David gets anointed. And King Saul at first likes him, but then he grows to despise him. Soon he's chasing him. And there's a part in the book of Samuel where literally David is hiding in a cave for fear of his life from King Saul. King Saul ends up going into the cave and he uses it as basically a giant toilet. And while he's in there, David's men say, "Hey, David, this is your chance. You could kill the king right now. He's been hunting you for years. This is your chance." And David says, "No, I'm not going to do that. Vengeance is not mine to take. He was anointed by the Lord. I'm not going to do that." So instead, he cuts a piece of his robe off. Well, King Saul leaves the cave. And after he's a safe distance away, David comes out holding the piece of the robe and he says, "King Saul, just so you know, I could have taken your life, but I didn't. You were anointed king. I honor that 100%. Here's a piece of your robe to prove it. I could have taken your life." And King Saul then says, "You are more righteous than I, David, for you have been good to me. I could have had the chance. You could have repaid me with evil for all of this. Instead, you didn't." And the point in all of this is that what we're trying to be taught in this is that vengeance is not ours for the taking. Chris, have you ever had a time in life where you wanted to get even with someone, but instead you just threw it out to the Lord? Never.
How many times this week? Is that what you asked? I'm sorry.
And what happens in the end is that King David becomes King David. And it wasn't through him murdering the current king. He didn't have to do that. Yes, he was chased by King Saul for a while, but he got to a position where literally he became king honorably in a righteous way. And so, Chris, if I could just ask you to say a blessing and then we'll jump into the news.
Absolutely. Heavenly Father, first and foremost, I'd like to acknowledge who you are in my life. I've accepted the fact that everything, even a single breath, is a miracle, and that's a result of my relationship with you. I ask that you bless us so that we can share some knowledge that can have a positive impact on everybody that's listening today, so that they can better do with the gifts that you've provided to them. I ask this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Okay, guys, so much has happened in the last 7 days. First one that we're going to dive right into is JP Morgan. I'll put this on the big screen for everybody so it'll pop up for you guys. JP Morgan just lowered its recession odds for the United States of America. And remember, we've been covering the tariff situation and a lot of the economic turmoil that's been happening in the last few weeks. But right now we have JP Morgan, who first came out and said, "Oh, there's going to be a recession." Now they're backpedaling on this. Chris, what do you make of this?
Listen, I have to say this. I think Trump is an amazing chess player. That's really what it comes down to, right? Think about it. He put all these, he threw tariffs against everybody. And what happened? Nations started coming to the table to negotiate and give us a better deal. Same thing is happening with China. Like Trump pushed and pushed and pushed, and like playing chicken with China, and China flinched. I think that this has been an amazing strategy by him. And listen, I'm going to be honest. We've been feeding the world for years. We've been feeding the rest of the world for 50 years. Isn't it time for us to eat? Isn't it time for us to get a fair deal in the world economy? I'm tired of paying extra and there's no reciprocation from these other countries. So I think that this is all just falling into place. I think this is exactly what Trump was playing out, expecting to happen. JP Morgan they talked too fast. They just ran their mouth too quick about this recession. I think Trump had a master plan in play, and we're seeing the results of that. So yeah, JP Morgan is eating a little bit of humble pie, I think.
We're watching the data here, guys, very closely. And although we did have 1/4 of GDP slip, probably because a lot of companies saw the tariffs coming and they put down money in advance to buy up things.
Yep.
But in order to have a recession on the books, you have to have 2/4 of GDP slips. So we'll all watch together. We'll know in a couple of months
Yeah.
whether a recession actually hits or not. But as Mr. Lavin just said, Trump is a pretty good negotiator. So he knew what he was doing walking into that.
Art of the deal.
The art of the deal.
Hmm.
Okay, let's talk about this new rent control law that Washington State just signed. So, Chris, it's putting a cap at 10%, but most existing leases will be around 7%, meaning the landlord can't bump the rent. They have a ceiling amount. Rent can't keep going up and up and up. What do you make of this?
Well, by and large, I am against rent control. And what this bill is actually saying, that you can increase rents on existing tenants either 7% plus the cost of inflation or 10%, whichever is lower, right? So 10% is always going to be the max. And on new tenants, it's fair game. Like if you move in and the last tenant paid $1,000, I can charge you $2,000. There's no regulation on that. The other part of this is it's 5% on manufactured housing, and on new construction, there's a 12-year pause on any control. Normally, I'm dead set against rent increases. I'm not going to go to Oregon, and I'm not going to get involved in any of this type of rent control situation. But all in all, it's nowhere near as bad as it could be. It really isn't. Like I would love to be in a place where I could raise rent 10% a year. We, in general, in a market where the rent hasn't been increased with the market, will raise it 5 years, 5% a year at max. So this doesn't bother me all that much. Although I'm not running to Washington to buy anything at this point. I'm running to Oregon, not running to California. It's not happening.
Yeah, understanding the basic economics of a multifamily. If we're able to raise the rent 7% per year, what happens in 5 years is we become rich.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. Like it compounds. It's not just 7%. You have 7%, and then the growth of that 7% next year, it compounds. So you become really, really rich.
Really fast.
The challenge that Chris is saying on this is that sometimes when legislation comes in, let's just say it's 7% today, who's going to stop the politicians from amending it 2 years from today?
Right.
In my home state, originally my home state, Minnesota, they passed legislation in St. Paul, the capital, where literally even existing landlords, if they go in and do a $50,000 renovation, they're capped on how much they can charge a tenant. This legislation is not so bad today that they passed in Washington, but some states go a little bit extreme with this.
Right.
So that's why we as investors, we don't take our money to states that have legislation with rent controls. Chris, we've got CMBS loans. I'm going to ask you to break this down as if I'm a second grader. What the heck does this mean to see the highest delinquencies on this type of loan for multifamilies since 2015?
You know, I haven't really totally wrapped my head around why it's this segment of the market. You know, this is a security-backed mortgage, right? That's what CMBS is all about. And the only thing I can really come up with, why this segment? And then I look back historically at the rates. Generally, you can get a CMBS for a little bit lower rate than you can an agency loan, sometimes as much as 1 point. So I think that people got these CMBS, weren't really great operators. It's adjusted on them, and now they've gone delinquent. So That's the only thing I can come up with. Why this segment? Why is this happening? I'm not sure. I'm really not truly sure. That's the only thing I can come up with. Yeah, the rates are adjusting and people can't handle it, and now they're bailing.
Yeah, and unfortunately, because they're used to a certain cash flow with the low interest rate in today's higher interest rate environment, they can't refi. They can't run into a new bank and say, hey, please give me the rates of 10 years ago. It's just not going to happen. And so consequently, guys like Chris and I were getting phone calls. We had one of those calls last night.
That's right. Yep.
And it looks like we're not in the final signed paperwork stage of this yet, but we've got a verbal agreement last night where a seller who took out a certain loan a couple years ago, unfortunately, that loan expired on them, and we're able to step in and now rescue them from that project, and we're able to buy at a pretty big discount because of it.
Yeah, just to bail them out.
Yeah. So expect some more of that. Like we expect it. We're watching these numbers pretty close, and that's one of the metrics we're watching, the CMBS loans. Okay, so Chris, this next article, commercial real estate lending surges. So there's a whole rush of people running out, grabbing multifamily, and we haven't seen a rush like this in quite some time. What's your making of this?
Okay, so this is a lot. So I'm going to step through it real quick. So everybody knows about the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 and how it's come back as the big beautiful tax bill, and that is progressing. So what's going on with how does that affect this? So if I go out and buy a $10 million building tomorrow, I'm going to leverage that at 70%. In other words, I'm going to put 30% down and I'm going to leverage it at 70%. My tax basis and the tax credits, or however you want to vocalize that, is based on the whole $10 million acquisition, not just the $3 million piece that I put down, but the whole 10 million. So we've got these people coming out, especially people with deep pockets and high earnings, right? In order to offset their high earnings, they're making these large real estate acquisitions so that they can get those tax credits. The larger the acquisition, the better they are with regards to tax breaks when it comes tax time. So yes, the lending is up. That means there's more transactions happening, and I personally believe it's a direct result of the bill that's going to be, I'm going to talk it into existence. It's going to pass. It's going to be retroactive 100% as of January 1, 2025.
Why don't we actually pull that forward and let's talk about this.
Probably should have talked about this first.
So this is the bill that Chris is just mentioning right now. The House originally passed this, then it went to the Senate. They negotiated some of it, then they passed it, then it got kicked back to the House, and now the House is in their final rounds of negotiation. This is the big, beautiful bill that they talk about on the news, that you hear the president talking about quite a bit, and now that Mr. Lavin's talking about. This is the one that we feel is going to pass. So what Chris is saying is that when this passes, they will retroactively activate the tax component. Okay, so what that means is that you've got folks right now that are running around saying, you know what, I better go buy as much commercial real estate as possible, because when they pass this tax bill, it's going to be like strapping a rocket booster to all multifamily properties values.
100%.
Why? Chris, why?
Why? Because just as I just previously explained, you get the tax credits. So what happens is now that the inventory is being bought up, we're getting scarcity in the market of deals. That people are going to start raising the prices, lowering the cap rates. And if you're in the right tax bracket and you're making enough money, people will acquire these assets with a negative cash flow just to have the tax depreciation, keep it for a couple of years, and then dump it back into the market. All they want is that big, like I said, if it's a $10 million asset, you're borrowing $7 million, you still get the tax basis based on that $10 million. You dump it, you go into the next property and buy a bigger property. And then that's just, you're going to see that cycle. And you can cash flow negatively for a couple of years because you make up for it in the tax benefits. Not our business strategy, not what we do, but that's what you're going to see happening fast. So the inventory is going to decrease, price is going to go up, supply and demand.
Yeah, to be 100% clear, we don't buy negative cash flow.
Negative, never.
We walk away. But the reason that a lot of people they're willing to pay stupid prices and negatively cash flow is because of the tax perks. They're literally writing off so much of their ordinary income that it makes sense for them.
If I can break that down a little bit further, let's say you buy a $10 million asset with a $7 million loan, you will literally get $5 million, let's say $4.5 million in K1 depreciation losses on your tax return, on your K1 for your tax return. So if it costs you $300,000 to hold that property for a year, $4.5 million in tax credits, $300,000 in cost, net $4.2 million. So it makes sense. We do not do that. We do loan deals that are positive, that will grow to feed our investors' return.
That's why you're seeing a surge in people borrowing money to go get commercial real estate right now.
100%.
And I'm just going to point out these numbers just because it's staggering. Like this is a massive, massive shift. 159% increase. And then on offices, it's up to 200%. So like people are just racing to grab commercial real estate right now. So interesting to watch this unfold. All right, next up, Chris, I want to highlight one of the friends of the show, Mr.
Yeah.
Scott Cherner, HUD Secretary.
Yeah.
He's talking about basically his vision, and I think this is important for investors to hear.
Visiting one of our public housing authorities, the residents that live there in a city in our country, and I was visiting with them about the deplorable conditions that they live in one of our public housing authorities, which we're taking inventory of all of those as well. And I heard the story, the testimony of one young lady said, I have been living in this public housing authority in this project since 1973. That means she has been living there since birth or shortly thereafter. And so because of that, her mother, probably her grandmother, raised her there. She's living there. Now she's raising her children there. And so that's the paradigm that we want to change. My parents, neither one of them went to college, but they both instilled in me a tremendous work ethic, and it has made our family stronger. And that's what we want here, not just at HUD, but from the administration, our country overall, is to have young people to see those coming before them, working hard, providing for them families, because if young people are incentivized to work, that will change our culture. It'll change our workforce. It'll increase earnings, increase family stability. And so that's what we're after here at HUD. That's what the president and our administration is after. And Maria, I believe that it is beneficial for the posterity of our country, the rehabilitation and the reconciliation of our families.
No doubt.
So this is the person that is really controlling the fate. I know there's congressional approval, but who's getting money for these Section 8 programs, who's not getting money, opportunity zones, like he's got a lot of levers that he controls in this whole thing. And he's saying, hey, I want to cut back on the amount of checks going out, and I want to see people get up on their feet. I want to see people work. I want to see people get this culture revived again. What are your thoughts on that, and how does it affect investors?
So listen, I love this guy. I truly do, because he's of the mindset that if you're going to be getting government help, there's certain expectations of you. You should be trying to get a job. You should have a job. Yeah, he was even at one point talked about mandatory drug testing. I love this guy. He's really about helping the American people. I grew up in housing projects, so I know what it's like to live under those conditions. And I know what it's like to have that mentality of once you fall into the system, it's nearly impossible to get out. And he's doing everything he can to encourage people to move out by controlling what happens. He's going to make it easier or make more sense to you for you to go out and get a job than to sit on a government program. I just truly applaud this guy. I just love what he's about, and I love that he shares our belief system, and I've got nothing but great things to say about him so far.
Yeah, and Chris and I have warned all of our followers. We talked about the Section 8 cutbacks.
Yep.
We've posted a lot of articles on this show before. We've shown you where literally some cities, they're seeing a lot of those Section 8 funds pulled back right now, and then not getting approved for next year. And so we do not think it's the right time to buy low, maybe it's not the right word, but subsidized housing.
Subsidized housing, correct.
Subsidized housing. I know some people play that game, but right now in this current administration, it's could be some trouble sometimes.
It is scary. And here's another thing that's scary. I've been watching, I follow a lot of TikTok. I'm up on social media to watch trends of what other people, to get some insight into the trends, what other people are doing. And there are literally people out there that are selling classes for $15,000, $20,000, all about Section 8 housing and how it's free money. Well, now these people got all these assets and no more Section 8 subsidies, or the subsidies reduced. What are they going to do with all these tenants? They're going to have to evict them. It's horrible.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, when people go through a lifestyle change, you'd like to believe that maybe a Section 8 tenant could go from getting free rent to now having to pay for half, but the reality is there's a big shift. So we don't do subsidized housing here. We've bought some buildings that had some in it, but we try to convert everything to cash paying market rate tenants over time. And the assets that we go after nowadays, I'm going to actually pop one up because this is more applicable to the times that we're in. Let's see if I can get both. There we go. Okay, so this is the asset that we're about to buy. This is a Class A, beautiful building. Literally, the tenants in this, that they're not anywhere near that income range that we just spoke
No.
about. These are pilots, they're surgeons, they're folks that are on the higher end of things. And it's in a city called Green Bay, Wisconsin. And if you've been looking for a potential investment opportunity, then pay attention to this one. Green Bay was ranked #1 best place to live in 2023, and it's been on the list almost for a decade now. The city just keeps getting hotter and hotter. And when we're looking for places to buy, we're looking at population growth and job growth. Those are the two driving forces that tell us we should be investing in that city. And Green Bay's got population moving in, and they've got not just population, but they've got high paying population because of the job scene. So if you scroll into this article, you'll see that Green Bay ranks #2 in the country for high income earners moving to the state. This is massive, massive, massive. So it's only second behind one city in Florida right now. On top of that, this is the county in the state of Wisconsin that has the highest population growth. And I want to put one thing in perspective too. When we're getting into a property, we need to make sure that we can actually hit the returns that we promise our investors. So we're always looking at what is the occupancy rate? What is the absorption rate? Like where are things at nationally versus our property? And our property, I'm going to show you in a second, it ranks way better than the national stat, but the national stats say that vacancy as a whole is at 7.1%. 7.1%, that's this far right side of the graph. You can see that it's increased since last year, up to 7.1%. This particular market is at 3.9%, less than half the national average for vacancy. So it's just incredible. Anything that gets out there that's good product, that's priced right, it gets absorbed. There's renters that move into it, they want it. And so this is our asset. Beautiful, beautiful property. It's right downtown in Green Bay. Chris, you got to smile.
I know, I want to call it the big beautiful building. Yeah. I just do that.
It matches the tax bill.
Yeah, right? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. For this one though, we're partnering with accredited investors on this. That simply means that as an individual, you make $200K or more. As a married household, it means you make $300K or more per year, or you've got a net worth of $1 million or more. If you find yourself in that bucket and you say, hey, I'm looking for a project, this is the project that both Chris and I are putting personal funds into.
Yes.
Beautiful building. It's the first one we've published so far this year. And we did it with good reason. We wanted to make sure we got the right one, and this is the right one by a long shot. Beautiful property.
Big, beautiful property.
Chris, anything you want to say on Green Bay?
No, I think that you nailed it. This is I got to tell you that, listen, I'm going to say this, and this is being truthful. This is like 60% full already. So if you want to jump on board, please act, because we have one family office investor that may take up the balance. So if you're interested and you want to get involved in this, please, please, please reach out to your advisor, reach out to Doug, reach out to Dan, reach out to Sue, and get your position locked up.
Cool. You'll see a link popping in the chat for that. All you got to do is click the link and then basically sign up for a quick call with us. If you're following us on social media and you don't see that link, put the word call in the comments, C-A-L-L, call, C-A-L-L, and our team will send you a private link so that you can book on our calendar. This one, it's beautiful. The reason why people are jumping on it so fast, not only is it beautiful physically, but numerically it is.
Yeah.
We're expecting between 18 and 22% rate of return for investors. That's net to investors. The other thing is that we strategically structure how investors are paid. So we don't like to overpay the government for anything. We want them to get what's theirs, pay to Caesar what's Caesar's, but you don't have to pay them a tip. So what that means is that when people are getting distributions from us each quarter, we're doing a quarterly return of capital. That's technical terms, but it makes it so that's the most tax efficient way to get money. Imagine being able to collect money every quarter, but not having to pay tax on it during that year. So we try to do everything very, very tax efficient here at HomeInvest. So in case you're wondering, like, what's in it for Chris and I, why do we do this? We get paid. We get paid an acquisition fee. It's kind of like how a real estate broker gets paid. That's not why we do this. Why we do this is because on the backside, we get anywhere between 20 and 30% of the profit. And that's what fuels our operation. That's why Chris and I get into these deals, put our personal money into the deals, and it's why we invite you guys to come along the ride with us as well. Any other things you want to say today, Chris?
Yeah, I just want to make it clear that, although we get paid on the back end, that's really paying us back for what we spend to operate the property along the way, to develop it, to build it up, to stabilize it, and to increase the rents and do all that operations. And additionally, those profits, we personally utilize our profits to do some really cool things in the world to have a positive effect. We give a portion of our company profits away and a whole bunch of our own personal money to have a positive effect in the world. So that's what this Believe in More is back here, is we believe in having a positive impact on the world and generating profits to do that. You want to answer that question?
Yeah. Hey, JW, how you doing, man? So JW is asking, what is the length of the term of the investment? And so JW, we put in all of our docs 5 to 7 years. It could happen faster than that, but we always like to underpromise and overdeliver.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And between 3 and 7 is real life. It could
Right.
could pop in that time frame. I had a question from Dr. Mash this morning. He said, "Hey, Nate, for guys like me, like I'd rather just put my money in and not have you sell it in 3 to 5 years. What are the chances that you guys will just keep it forever? Can I just put my money in forever and you guys don't sell it?" What would you say to that?
Well, the primary reason is he's looking out for his tax, his capital gains tax, right? So we have a mechanism for that. It's called the 1031 exchange. So even if we sell this asset, we take that money for him and roll it into the next asset, and he never has to pay taxes on it, all the way up to the day he dies. Then that tax basis gets reset to zero, and his heirs get all of that money or whatever asset it's in, totally tax-free, tax burden-free, I should say.
Chris, let me ask a tough question, so to speak. And if you guys have a tough question you want to ask, feel free. What's the worst case scenario? You've bailed out other syndicators of
Correct.
properties. What's the worst case scenario for someone that's coming in with cash that could happen to them in an investment like this?
Well, the reality is if the property is not operated properly, the worst case is that you end up in a position where hopefully the asset just goes flat. What I mean by that is that your cash is secured with real estate. So the chance of that real estate going backwards is slim to none unless it's poorly managed. So your worst case scenario is there's no profits and you get your money back, in my opinion. Like, we carry insurance so that in case a building, it's right on the water, in case a building gets wiped out. The type of insurance we carry on our properties is not just for the physical property itself, but we also have insurance ensuring the income. So that if the property gets demolished, we still get insurance, or you get payments as though the property had people living there and they were paying their rent. So we do everything to mitigate those risks, but let's be honest, everything has a risk, including walking out your front door in the morning. You could get run over by a car. But like I said, we try to stack everything in our favor so that we don't have to deal with those kinds of things.
And the biggest risk beyond what Chris already described that you see is happening right now with some people in their deals is that they took out bad debt.
Yep.
They took out loans
Correct.
at low interest rates for 2 years, and then the rate adjusted at the end of that period. And now you're seeing a lot of those people struggle
Yep.
because if the rate goes from 4% to 11% as an example, that might eat up all the cash flow. It might strangle the property.
Correct.
And so bad operators and bad debt. And on this one, because of Chris's balance sheet, we're getting one of the best loans in the country.
Yes.
Fixed in the 5s, which is unheard of. You can't get in the 5s like
Not right now.
Not everyday Joes can get in the 5s, but because of Chris's balance sheet, we have a loan on the table right now in the 5% range, fixed long-term debt. So good operations and good debt, you can have home runs on projects like this.
And the other reason that's our operating plan is 3 to 5 years is we generally get 4 or 5 years of interest only upfront on the loan. So in that time frame, we generate a lot more cash because we're not having to pay a principal balance back, and we get more cash back to our investors. And then that converts to a standard amortized loan where it's principal and interest. Still not bad because we predict for it, and by that time we've increased the rents and increased the cash flow on the building. But we'd like to get out of it at that point so we can take that cash and maximize it into the next deal.
Cool. Now you guys got the full rundown of the property and you got all the news for this week. Go out there, take some action. Chris, anything you want to say to wrap up today?
Listen, if you want a different tomorrow, You have to do something different today. If you want to end up in the situation that you're in today, tomorrow, just keep doing what you're doing. I beg you to be a good steward of the blessings that God's bestowed upon you. Go out there and multiply by doing something wise with your money, by doing a wise investment. God bless and thank you.
Bye, guys. Thank you.